Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Manage Her, the podcast where we turn the invisible work of women into powerful, intentional leadership. I'm your host, Aimee Rickabus, author of The Manage Her, entrepreneur, and mama of six. Today's guest is someone I've admired for years, not just for her mind, but for the way she lives her message. Kristina Kristen is a lifestyle medicine educator, chemistry professor, writer, and health mentor devoted to helping people reclaim their energy and vitality through conscious daily choices. Her groundbreaking work in mitochondrial science bridges decades of chemistry and biology with practical, real-world habits that anyone can apply. Kristina's first book, Beyond Just Genes, explored how our mitochondria shape every aspect of health. And in her newest book, 10,000 Suns, the 28-day Mitochondria Reset, she gives us the roadmap to restore our body's cellular engines, burn fat, sharpen focus, and age with strength and vitality. She says mitochondria aren't just the powerhouses of your cells. They're the operating system of your body. And when they're depleted, everything from your hormones to your mood to your mental clarity starts to suffer. Today, we're talking about how to manage your health the way you manage your business with intention, intelligence, and the right tools. Hi, Kristina. Thanks for coming
Oh my goodness.
today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. And right back at you when I could triple what you just said about my admiration for you throughout the years. You're just unbelievably prolific and wise and just an amazing person. So thank you for that intro and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So glad you're here. Let's start with the science of energy. I love how you say mitochondria are the operating system of the body, not just the powerhouses. Can you explain that concept for our listeners who might be hearing this for the first time?
Yes. So for the longest time, the mitochondria have had the title of the powerhouses of the cell, sometimes the engines of the cell, but basically, this has been their title for decades now. And specifically, in the last 2 decades, what has transpired is this much deeper understanding of their role within the cell. And they are incredibly influential and important in every aspect of the cell. I could roll off like 20 different, very specific roles, but I would say the most important ones are obviously the energy generation, which is foundational. Life is energy, the flow of energy. So that is foundational. But beyond that, they control metabolism. So whether you're burning fat or sugar, so extremely important in weight and metabolism, they determine whether the cell lives or commits basically suicide, a term called apoptosis. And this is so important, not only because, as we know, cancer is uncontrolled proliferation, but in every way, you need to basically get rid of damaged cells in order for the health and well-being of the good cells to continue so that the resources go towards the healthy cells. So this vital role of determining whether the cell lives or dies is within the mitochondria. So I think that's next to energy transformation, that's their next most important role. They also produce your sex hormones. So estrogen, testosterone, cortisol. They give you your body heat. They're thermoregulators. They're very, very foundational in epigenetics. So they turn your genes. It's not that you're just born with a set of genes that are just, basically static. They determine through your lifestyle which genes get turned on and off. So I can just go on and on, but I think it's clear that they're not just the energy producing elements within your cells, they're literally the operating system.
That's amazing. It's such a different take on mitochondria. I always knew they were important, but not this important. We'll never look at them the same way again,
Absolutely.
knowing that they're really regulating so many of our aspects of our bodies.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
much.
that's amazing.
Quite frankly, I think for me, the more deeply you look into it, the more you really sort of pull back the layers. For me, what really inspired me to write these books is most people not only don't know the importance of their mitochondria, they've never even heard of their mitochondria. And I find this to be such a disconnect in terms of how do you decipher what is elemental to your health if you haven't even heard of the most foundational entities, which are those that are producing your energy and basically operating they're like the telecommunication network, that's basically running the show. How can we not know this?
Yes, yes, totally. I mean, I was a bio nerd, so I definitely always paid attention to mitochondria, but most people, I don't know. The mitochondria are the unsung heroes of the body. We know about all of the larger organ systems of the body, but I don't think people are really looking at intracellular
Yeah.
function as a major cause of disease in the body. And now we're looking at mitochondria as that, very small thing that's actually so foundationally important to that human
Yep.
health. So, you've taught chemistry for
Mhm.
years. How do you translate complex science into something people can actually live day to day?
It's a muscle. It's truly a muscle that you want to meet people where they're at. You don't want to overwhelm
Mhm.
them, and you want to be able to relay the information in a way that makes sense. Also, doesn't dumb it down. I think that just from, my love is chemistry, actually. I find it to be incredibly profound. I've actually been brought to tears by some of the realizations throughout the years of just how important some of the most foundational, the biological chemical formulas are. So for me, it's really this passion and love to be able to make a bridge between something that may be a little bit too nerdy or complex and bringing that to life. Actually, in my classes, what I really love to do is connect what we're learning to the real world around you. Like, why are we learning this? How is this important? And so I think that that's something that I try my best to do in the best way possible so that it doesn't lose its meaning and it hits people in the right spot.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, you often say that when we don't have health, we can't serve. Why is that connection between vitality and purpose so important to you?
So when you're in an airplane and heaven forbid you're told, this is something that we've all grown up with, that if heaven forbid something happens, you need to put the oxygen mask on first. You don't put that oxygen mask on anyone other than yourself first. Why? Because you're pretty much not going to be useful if you're not there, right? If you pass out. So
Right.
essentially, I think aside from time, our health is one of the most, if not the most important asset that we have. So to take care of our own health is foundational so that we can also contribute to the society around us and to basically help others, in my case, also be healthy. But whatever your passion or your purpose is, you can't really do it when you're sick as well.
It's so true. So true. Yeah. As I've been writing my next book, I'm talking about success and happiness and all the aspects of happiness in our life. And it's the one that always tends to come back up is health. How health pertains to happiness in human happiness, it impacts it in such a major way. So I feel like, as we're having this discussion about managing your
Mhm.
health, when you are well, it's much easier to do the things you want to do. It's much easier to live the life you want to be the mom you want to be the businesswoman you want to be. Taking care of ourselves, managing our health is one of the essential things we have to do as the managers of ourselves, as our managers. So I love that your new book, 10,000 Suns, introduces a 28-day mitochondria
Mhm.
reset. What inspired that title, and what does it mean to have 10,000 suns inside of
Oh my
us?
gosh, thank you for that question. I love that question. I loved this notion of, let me just explain the title 10,000 Suns. So I read this incredibly interesting, fascinating book by Nick Lane. It's called Power, Sex, and Suicide. And
Mm.
basically, he's a famous, prolific author, an evolutionary biologist, and his expertise is in mitochondria. So his name is Nick Lane. Anyway, so within this book, he did a calculation which struck me as so profound. And he said that gram per gram that within us, we outperform the sun by 10,000 times in energy transformation and the efficiency with which we transform energy. Can you imagine that? I mean, the
Wow.
sun it's the life force, right? The external life force. Well, the internal life force that we have is even more efficient than the iconic, right? The energy source that we have on this planet. So I thought it grabbed me so much, this 10,000 suns idea, that I thought, oh my gosh, I want to have that be my title.
I love that. You really don't think about that. You really don't think of the conversion of energy that happens within the human body. You
It's
don't. Yeah.
incredible, how truly it's like a miracle. It's trillions of miracle that happen every second within us, right? And what our mitochondria contribute to that. In essence, and the second part to your question was when I wrote Beyond Just Genes, I had so many people try to reach me to say, like, what do I do specifically? Like, do I do this? What do I do with my diet? What do I do with my exercise? What are the ways that I can really have an impact on my health? And it just was such a natural, a no-brainer next step for me to create the protocol that is based on actual science-backed, peer-reviewed, published studies of the most important things that you can do within your day that really impact the health of your mitochondria. The one thing I want to say is, why 28 days? I could have said 21 days, but I just thought 28 days somehow sounded, I wanted to use 28, but I could have said 21. And the reason for that is, tell me if you've heard this, but we've always been told that it takes 3 weeks to get into shape, right? And 1 week to get out of shape.
Yep.
So that's what I grew up with. It was always like, oh, it takes 3 weeks to get into shape. My understanding now is that, yes, it's about your muscles, it's about training and all that, but really it's about your mitochondria. Because within that 3 weeks of doing let's just say the hormesis exercises, things that for an acute amount of time, they stress your mitochondria and they demand more energy, and your mitochondria have to produce more of themselves and they have to become more efficient.
Wow.
So that 3 weeks that it takes for you to get into shape, it's really foundationally about your mitochondria getting into shape. So that's
Wow.
why what you do in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 28 days, if you do it consistently, is transformative.
Wow, that's amazing, Christina. That is so amazing. And then use an acronym,
Yes.
NESTs. Could you walk me through
Yes.
that? How each one of those, yeah, what it is, and talk us through your
Yes.
pillars for to support your mitochondrial
So I
health.
wanted to make it easy, memorable, and something that people can kind of hold on to. And so there are pillars of health that, when you take, any sort of training in health, people break it down into the pillars. So one pillar is nutrition, exercise, sleep, toxin avoidance, and stress management. Another one is community building. Okay, so for me, I really wanted to focus on the five: nutrition, exercise, sleep, toxin avoidance, and stress control. So I made this mnemonic nests. And within these pillars, these five pillars, the nests program, every single day in the 10,000 Suns, my 28-day mitochondria reset, what you're doing is you're sending all the beneficial signals through your nutrition, exercise, sleep, toxin avoidance, and stress control to your mitochondria, which amplifies the signals in a way that if you just were to do one and not the other four, it still benefits you, but it benefits you exponentially more if you're doing all five and then doing them consistently and then doing them with a mito focused mindset. So, very specifically saying, does this serve my mitochondria? What do I need to eliminate? What do I need to add? What can I do better? And I tell you, I know what for example, within those five pillars, for me, I need to do better. So we all, wherever you are, some people have a peak in one pillar, but not the other, or they have,
Yes.
we do our best. But the point is you can basically enter this sort of how to optimize your health wherever you are.
Amazing. Amazing. I really love it. I find myself going back to it, going, oh, wait, nests. Okay. Am I doing it? Okay. I know I need to work on more exercise. It's one of the things as I've gotten busier with everything. It's the one thing that's been highly compromised
I
in my
hear you.
situation. Like, oh my gosh, that's in the one. I love sleep. I can never give up. My sleep is it's like a non-negotiable, and nutrition is a non-negotiable.
That's
But
good.
man, exercise has been a little negotiable for me lately. Um,
Well, what's also interesting, Amy, is that what you discover, because if you're really fascinated with longevity and you look into the real
Mhm.
world data, the exercise can be as simple as walking. just getting your steps in. I know that sounds
Nice.
like ridiculously simple, but you look at the blue zones, they're not going to the gym. They're not going and doing a million different like Pilates and, like hit and all the. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be doing that. I think it's a phenomenal thing to do. But in the proof
Yeah,
is in the pudding, sort of the best scientific data that we have is the real world data of the blue zones and really what they do every day, every single day. It's baked into their routines is they walk. That's it. So I hope that like,
that's
for
it.
me, I'm just like, oh, okay, I walked today. I walked my 5,000 steps.
And like, yeah, so 5,000 steps for you
Well,
then is what you're like
I
aiming
mean, I'm
for.
aiming for hopefully 7,000 to 10,000, but it also doesn't have to be all at once. That's the other thing. In fact, the
Right.
data is coming out that if you can do it even a little bit at a time is usually better. Let's just say you only have X amount of time and that's the only time you can do the walking. That's fine. But if you can take breaks throughout your day to do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that has even more impact than doing it all at once. They're both good, but just so for those who say, I don't have more time, everybody has 5 minutes. Everybody has 10 minutes, right?
Right?
You can
Yeah,
go
we do.
walk for 5 minutes, hopefully. Anyway, so it's just way to like
Yes.
not make it so daunting. It's not so daunting.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, because it is something I can do, go eat dinner and then go for a quick walk around the neighborhood,
That's
right?
that's the
Get
Mediterranean,
get your
yeah,
steps in.
the Mediterranean lifestyle. A lot of the blue zones, Sardinia, Greece, they have it. Like I said, the walking is baked in. They eat and then they walk. You walk everywhere. Yeah.
Yes. Those are the places in the world where people live the longest.
Yes. Yes.
That's amazing. So, for the women balancing work and motherhood and leadership, where do you recommend they start? And what's one small shift that can create a big impact? Other than just take going for a walk. I love that
I
one.
love that. I think that the awareness is number one. I kind of make an analogy. Let's just say you have a desire, you're in point A and you want to get to point B. Let's just say that's the case. And you're given a map, but on that map, there's no point B. There are all these other points, but there's no point B. You're not going to get to point B unless it's by accident. The
Yes.
idea that I'm suggesting is that once you recognize that energy production that meets the demands of your cells is the most important thing to pay attention to for anything if you want to avoid getting chronic illnesses or boost your immune system, etc. So the awareness, I would say that you look into what supports your mitochondria, you look into what doesn't support your mitochondria, and then on a daily basis it's a compounded, nothing in one day is going to do anything, right? The effort of doing the right things over years that add health span and lifespan to your existence. So I would say for women who want to start, if you think about it as in the most foundational, let's just say simplified version, two buckets. You have the good bucket and the bad bucket. Start to remove the things that are not beneficial for your mitochondria, the processed foods, excess sugar, the seed oils. Try to minimize your stress level. The chronic stress is incredibly detrimental to your health. Each of those pillars that I mentioned, different women, it's going to mean different things. Maybe they're doing really well with the nutritional part, but they're not doing so well with the exercise part. Or maybe they're doing those two well, but they're sleeping not very well. So you need to kind of take inventory of your five pillars and say, hey, if I want to live to be healthy like a Blue Zone member, what can I do now on a daily basis that's sustainable? That's the most important thing. Like any one of us can do something for a short amount of time. I think each one of us knows what we can sustain. So try to choose those, daily interventions that you think fit within your sensibilities, your sense of comfort, what you can sustain, and really do that over time. And it's just inevitable that you will see a transformation. So I'm sorry I'm not being very specific, but I would say, adopt a Mediterranean diet, Get rid of all the processed foods. Get rid of any sort of toxins that you're being exposed to, whether it's your personal products. We know where the toxic loads, sometimes we know where they are, and sometimes we can't control them. To the extent that we can control that, get rid of the toxic load or diminish it, lessen it, because you don't want to handcuff your mitochondria, and they are 10 times more susceptible to toxins than our own cells. So our mitochondria
Wow.
really suffer from a toxic load. So you really want to minimize that so you're not handcuffing them, and then add to the good things, the exercise, the diet, the stress control. Cortisol is incredibly, as I said, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, that revs up your mitochondria. And for a short amount of time, revving up your mitochondria, that's very, very important to, in the past when we were running away from tigers or some very acute threat, something that we need to run away from. The defense mechanism was for your mitochondria to create cortisol. And the cortisol, basically, it's like putting the throttle to, if you're going 10 miles an hour, it's like all of a sudden going 90 miles per hour. That is important when you're trying to run away from something. But in today's life, to be going at 90 miles per hour, cortisol all day long, that ages us. And that's incredibly, it's not a healthy way to live. So, anything that brings you peace, like meditation, yoga, walking, reading, whatever brings you a state of clarity and takes the foot off the gas for your mitochondria.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love getting in the garden. It's like, sometimes it's like, let me play in the dirt for a few minutes. I'll feel
Mhm.
fine. Or go
That's it.
walk in the sand and the beach,
Sunshine.
those are things that help me shift. Yes. Yeah, shift out of that stress hormone and into, let's calm it down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, totally. So you've said mitochondria don't just make energy, they make decisions. What are some signs that our cells are struggling or that we're running on a low voltage?
Yes, I think that's a very, very key question because, like everything else, the earlier you catch something that's going wrong, the more you have the ability to stop or reverse whatever it is that's happening. So, brain fog, constant fatigue, a feeling that you're just not well all the time. Now, we all have these, we're not machines. So we have these sort of interspersed throughout weeks that we may not feel great one day or another day. But if it's really a chronic situation where you're feeling like you don't have energy, you have brain fog, you can't really think clearly, you get every cold or flu, your immune system is not really optimal, you're all of a sudden gaining weight and you don't understand, you're not really doing anything differently, but somehow you're just gaining weight. Your metabolic numbers, like your blood sugar, when if you do some blood work, your blood sugar numbers are, becoming elevated, so you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. So these are all the telltale signs that your mitochondria are not really being served optimally. They're not functioning at their best. In fact, like a lot of people these days, you hear metabolic illnesses, but metabolic is mitochondria. Metabolism is mitochondria.
Wow.
So metabolic illnesses like heart disease, even cancer, diabetes, as I said, even dementia, these are all metabolic illnesses. Metabolism is in mitochondria. Disconnect that people don't fully connect those two. So essentially, the telltale signs are that you're not feeling well in one capacity or another, and it's chronic. It's really great to pay attention to that and not try to just crush the symptoms and not just to turn off the
Yeah.
symptoms, because for a short amount of time, that's okay. But if your goal is to not have that spiral into further symptoms, it's better to get at the root causes and nurture your mitochondria so that you reestablish your optimal health.
I love that. Yeah, really struggled, especially in my mid 20s. I was diagnosed with metabolic syndrome, polycystic ovarian syndrome,
Mhm.
Hashimoto's, a heart murmur, All of the above. Like, talk about full on mitochondria crashing. What really helped me recover, I really had to have a holistic approach to what I called being a human diet. So I really had to change my diet back to eating really just whole foods, lots of green smoothies, and adopting, actually really started walking a lot, those kinds of things to help me recover. And then, of course, managing cleansing my body and getting rid of the toxins that were inside of my body. But yeah, I mean, when you go down, you basically just said exactly what I had gone through in my mid 20s. That must have been something hit my mitochondria in a big hard way, and that's makes total sense to me. It absolutely. I when I run on low voltage, I know I'm on low voltage. I'm like, ooh, something's wrong. I'm doing something wrong.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
You're the picture of health, so whatever you did.
Well, I had to learn how to manage this body that I'm
Yeah,
in, it's now I feel it's like some people can handle a lot more toxins, a lot worse nutrition, but I happen to be, my mitochondria happen to be very finicky. I was like, it's like a
yeah,
Ferrari. You got to put the high
yep,
octane fuel in. Some people, we're a little more the canary in the coal
mhm,
mine, and I really am. So I have to just be really conscious of what I do and what I don't
yeah,
do. I do sleep 8 hours a night. I don't sleep less than 8 hours a night. I do eat really, really clean and
mm,
organic, because if I don't, I get sick. I don't
yep,
feel good. I'm 100% agreeing with all the things you're saying. So let's get into longevity, lineage, and
mhm.
lifestyle. One of the most fascinating things about mitochondria is that their DNA comes only from our mothers. So, what does that maternal lineage mean to you, both scientifically and symbolically?
And that's such a profound question for me specifically because, on this planet and in my life, she passed unfortunately about 10 years ago. She was my best of friends and my confidant, and she was just everything to me. And so, one of the most intriguing things about mitochondria, which again, most people don't know this, and it's just beyond fascinating, is that they have their own DNA. The
Yes.
mitochondrial DNA is inherited exclusively through the maternal line. So I think of the mitochondria as our life force, the engines, the everything we just discussed, they are generating the energy for us to live. So they are without a question our life force, and our life force comes exclusively from our mother. That blows my mind in so many ways. And so our blueprint, the DNA that our chromosomes, our DNA that we inherit, that everyone knows about, the 23 chromosomes, that one comes from, the 23 come from your dad and the other 23 come from your mom. That is one blueprint. And then the other, it's like two cell lines. The other line is your mitochondrial line. So the way I think about it in a way is that every one of us has been within the wombs of our mothers, and then we were introduced to this world, and then she left us with her life force. So, in essence, it's such a magical notion that your mother basically lives within you.
It's actually beautiful and so amazing. And it's really so interesting to me because I've always felt so close. My mother's mother's mother, who I'd never even met. I've always felt so close to her. And I think, wow, this really makes sense because I'm carrying her life force energy in my body. Basically,
That's
we're carrying the life force, your mother's life force energy is what we carry forward into the
yes.
future, into the next generations. It's
It's
beautiful.
beautiful. It's beautiful. It's exquisite, and I think that again, it's one of those things where when you learn that, you want to share that too, and it's something that it's interesting that again, 9 out of 10 people don't know this. They don't realize this. It's not something that's discussed. It's not well known at all, and when you learn it, you wonder, wow, how come how come this isn't just like everybody should know this?
You would think, I mean, it's really so cool. It is so important and it does make so much sense. I mean, you fall off the mama tree for sure. And it's, you're left. I'm glad that our mothers are able leave this. I'm glad that my children, I look at all of my children because I have four
Yeah.
boys. And I think, well, at least they have my mitochondria. They won't be able to pass it on to their children, but I know that I've left them with something.
Yes.
It's cool when I look at my daughter, who's my blood blood daughter that she gets to pass my mitochondrial DNA into the future. That is pretty freaking
Very,
cool.
very cool. As a mom of 2
Very cool.
boys, what would have happened if I had a 3rd child? I don't know, maybe I would have been able to have some continuum of the mitochondria, but it's just fascinating. It's really something that every day, actually, it's not there usually on a daily basis, it's something that somehow comes to mind for me.
I love that. I love that. And you've lived this work from running trails to eating meals, Mediterranean inspired food. How do you integrate these habits into everyday life without turning health into another to do?
Yeah, so I think it's easier when you think of it as, by all means, I want to just say I'm far from doing it well every single day or perfectly every single day. So there are days where I'm like, oh, shoot, I really didn't sleep well, or I didn't, there was some pillar that I didn't do as well as I wish I had. I think that to the extent that, like I said, 1 or 2 days or even a week is not going to be that influential in the overall scheme. It's really thinking about it as your lifestyle. I mean, this isn't something that's like a fad, or, you're like, okay, I'll do this for a week or two and then I'm done. If you really are interested, maybe if, for those who are not interested, this won't really resonate. But if you're really interested in preserving your health, hopefully being around for as long as possible, you kind of think about it not in a sort of a punishment or something that you have to do. You just think of it as, this is my putting my oxygen mask on. Like, I have to do it, and I like to do it because I want to serve. I want to be around. I want to see my grandchildren. I want, so I mean, for me, it's just, I do my best. I do my best, I think. And I'm,
Yes.
and I'm, and I'm
Yes.
not overly critical on days that I haven't done my best.
Yeah. I think it's about having well,
Yeah,
awareness. First, having an awareness of what's going to be good for you, and then having an intention of, well, I'd like to be better at doing those things for myself, right?
precisely.
It's like, okay, well, as long first you got to know what you need to do so that you can be well, and then once you know, then it's we do our best. We do our best to do those things. But if you don't know, you're right. If you're trying to get from A to B and you don't know where B is, you're never going to get there. So the first thing is to, get the map from A to B. Let's figure out how to get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
All right. And one thing I know about you that I think is so cool and very interesting is that you are taking vitamin C with every meal that you eat. Why do you do this?
Anyone who knows me, I'm just the vitamin C woman. And I have to say, for me, I can only speak, I'm not prescribing, or I don't want to say everybody else should do this, but I can say that for me, it's been incredibly helpful. I have taken vitamin C. I keep saying 30 years, but it's now going on 40 years, 40 years on a
Oh,
daily basis. I don't miss, I've never missed a day of taking vitamin C. And I do take it with every meal. For me, my understanding of where I am with vitamin C is that it is, most people may not know this, but most animals, most mammals, they produce their own vitamin C, and it varies. It's dynamic in terms of if they're stressed, they produce more vitamin C. If they need it, they produce more. So we used to be able to produce our own vitamin C. We actually have the enzymes. There are 4 enzymes, enzymatic progressive enzymes that take glucose and they transform it into vitamin C. We have all those enzymes, but the last enzyme has mutated. So we can't produce our own vitamin C anymore. So getting it from our diet is absolutely key, absolutely key, because it is an antioxidant. It donates electrons, it donates voltage. When you live in a world that's progressively more toxins are oxidants. So they rob electrons. So your vitamin C ingestion, it gives electrons, it donates electrons. So what you're doing is basically it's an insurance policy, a circulating insurance policy that goes and puts out fires. I'm very much a believer in Linus Pauling, the
yes.
genius chemist, Nobel Prize winner, who was a huge, staunch advocate of vitamin C. And I know he's been poo pooed. I know a lot of people are like, no, he didn't know what he was talking about. I'm sorry. I believe he knew what he was talking about. And for me, it's worked very well.
I love it. And tell us about vitamin C and collagen production.
Well, vitamin C, you cannot produce connective tissue all connective tissue, collagen, tendons, ligaments, the structure of, our fascia and all that, the inner lining of your arteries and veins. You need vitamin C to basically have to create the connective tissue. So without vitamin C, you cannot produce collagen or the connective tissues. So if you want your skin to not age as quickly, good idea to really know the role of vitamin C and
I
your all
love
your
it.
and the other elements that are internal.
I absolutely love it. And so when we first started talking about this, I was thinking about, 1,000 milligrams with each meal, which is doable. Just keep some in your purse. You eat, take one afterwards when you're done eating. And I know you take more than that. But yeah, I think that that's kind of a cool way to get people started on doing one simple little thing that could,
Absolutely.
change their health.
Well, and also just so you know, there's never been established and lethal upper dose for vitamin C. It's literally one of the safest substances that you can take. So, is it wasteful? Don't think so. And is it, like I said, it's an insurance policy that basically gives you voltage, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's an antioxidant that's circulating. It's one of the few that's circulating all the time if you have it, if you ingest it. So it works for me. I
Amazing.
highly recommend it.
I know you're older than me and your skin looks fabulous. Really, yes, totally. Your skin is a testament to the fact that this works. It absolutely
Thank
works.
you so much. And so does makeup. Makeup works well too.
So, how do you define longevity and what are the biggest myths people still believe about aging?
Longevity for me is kind of meaningless unless it's coupled with, so the lifespan, unless it's coupled with health span, is actually
Yes.
torture because who wants to live and be unhealthy, the last 25 years, 10
Yes.
years of your life? If you're struggling and you're not feeling, if you're truly sick, maybe it's not as powerful as if you have your lifespan and your health span. So longevity, in the sense that appeals to me, is coupled with health. I would say the whole idea behind doing any of this is so that we're not, reliant on other people to take care of us till the end. And we
Yes.
are self-sufficient, we are happy, we are doing things we have a sense of purpose, and we can do that for as long as, to the extent that it's possible, that we're here. For me, longevity is very much a combination of lifespan and health span. It's important
Yes.
to think about that and not just prolonging life for me again.
Yeah. And what do you think the biggest myths people still believe about aging?
So that it's purely genetic. I would say
Mm.
that is one of the biggest, let's just say, I'll call it a lie. It's a
Yeah.
misnomer, it's misunderstood, it's not just pure genetics. It's, in fact, I would say, mostly environmental. Unless there are some, less than 5% of people really truly have inherited genes that shorten their lives in very specific ways, but the majority of people have a range, they've been given genes that can be switched on and off. Like I said, the epigenetics that are driven by your mitochondria. I would say it's really important to embrace the notion that you can control, very much control, your health span and your lifespan by the things that you do consistently every day.
Yes.
And really be mindful of that. And the other thing is, nobody can do it but you. It really empowers you. You are in the driver's seat of you and your health, the manager. You are the manager of you. It's really empowering to take control and really understand your mitochondria, understand your bioengines, understand the energetics of your cells, and do what you can to drive you into the horizon in the best way possible.
Yes. I know I had a woman who, when I was going through my health struggle, she said, "You want to be healthy, but are you willing to be healthy?" And I said, "Well, what's the difference?" And she said, "Willing implies work."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And that was a big shift for me, realizing me just wanting it wasn't going to be enough, that I was really going to have to do the work to change my diet, to change my exercise, to do the things that needed to be done to correct the what was going wrong with my body. And so for me, I was like, "Whoa, okay." But yeah, but also that having that ownership, that radical understanding that, yeah, you're going to have to do this for yourself.
And Amy, a little bit also tangentially to that, also, I don't think there have to be gatekeepers to your health. So what I have noticed is that, because of the Western, predominantly Western paradigm of medicine, where there are gatekeepers
Mm.
to your health, everything is siloed into a specific disease that then, you're shutting off symptoms to that disease through interventions, through pharmaceuticals, etc. So I think, again, back to empowering yourself, there's no gatekeeper to your health. It's just you. And again, I hope that that's empowering to people to go, I want to understand. I know now what is foundational to health, and I will pursue it in the best way possible without having to resort to experts all the time.
Yes, 100%. When I became the authority on me, that was when I started to heal my body. So I agree 100%. So finally, for anyone listening who feels depleted or disconnected from their health, where should they begin?
Educate yourself on your bioenergetics. And if you want to take a shortcut to that, you can read about it and go to. I've done thousands of hours of research and I've distilled it. I've taken the time to distill this vast knowledge into 10,000 suns as well as beyond just genes. Somehow educate yourself on your mitochondria and then do yourself a favor and get on it.
I love it. I love it. I love it so much. Christina, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your science, and your spirit with us today. You reminded us that our energy isn't something we chase, it's something we can cultivate from within, cell by cell, choice by choice. For everyone listening, you can learn more about Kristina Kristen's work at KristinaKristenWellness.com and follow her on Instagram and TikTok at Kristina Kristen Wellness. Those both have K's. Kristina Kristen Wellness. Her new book, 10,000 Suns, The 28-Day Mitochondria Reset, is now available on her website, and it's the perfect guide to help you restore your energy, reset your metabolism, live younger, stronger, and longer. And if you love this conversation, share it with another woman who's ready to take charge of her health. And don't forget to subscribe to The Manager, where we redefine leadership from the inside out. Thank you so much. Thanks, Christina. You're the
Amy,
best.
thank you so much for having me, and you're the best. This was so much fun and such a pleasure. Thank you.
Living in the moment.